With just 5 numbers, you can achieve any goal you want in your life and in your business. And in this video, I'm going to explain exactly how to understand those 5 numbers, how to create those 5 numbers, so that any goal you set, you can effortlessly hit. This makes scaling stupidly simple. I'm going to talk about it in the context of your business in this video, and this has served me so well. It has made it so easy to grow my business. Like, I used to work countless hours trying to figure out, how do I grow? How do I make everything predictable? And now, because I can understand what these 5 numbers are, I can work less and I can make more. So let's dive right in. First of all, you have to understand the concept of systems thinking. Now, to explain what systems thinking is, if you don't know already, systems thinking is really what I call like introducing basically components that make the flywheel move. So the best way to describe that is a car. So you can see this beautiful drawing of a car that I've put together. Now, this car is something that is driving. This car is moving. But the car needs multiple components in order to move, right? It needs a transmission, it needs an engine, it needs a brake, it needs wheels, it needs so many things. Like it needs all these things to move forward. And it is a system, your car is a system that moves forward. And a car will not be able to drive without any of these components. If one component is missing, it will hurt the car. Like say for example, you remove the brakes from a car, the car is not going to be very effective, right? It's not going to work, you're not going to be able to stop the car. So those 5 things, or those things within the car, is what makes it move forward. And that can be applicable for anywhere else in life, right? For example, you could think about, with nature, you could think about like precipitation and like it raining, and then the rain is like what causes plants to grow, and then those plants give like life, and then that like is what feeds people and feeds like all the animals in nature, and then it's like this one big flywheel. Like if you want to like go deep into systems thinking, just Google like ecosystems, the ecosystem is a system, right? And it's super important to understand this, and this is like the key differentiator between like a not successful like entrepreneur and a very successful entrepreneur. It is like literally this. I know that like everything I've read so many books on this, like from Rockefeller and from all these like really successful businessmen, and they all adopted this mentality. But like, how do you actually put this into practice in your business? Well, the first thing you need to do is you need to understand what are the machines in the business to move forward, right? Your business is going to have its own machines that are needed for it to grow, for it to hit your goals, for it to like make more money or help you work less or whatever it may be. There are machines that are like create that flywheel of your business, right? Like I can remember reading about Amazon in Jeff Bezos' book, and it was like happy customers and like wide product selection. That's like their like 2 things where that creates the Amazon flywheel. And you need to identify that for yourself. So how do you identify that? Well, the easiest way I found to identify like what is needed for your business to move forward is using something called inversion thinking. Instead of asking yourself, what does my business need to grow? Because that's a really difficult thing to think about. Like there's just so many different things you could think about there. And it really is hard to break it down to just 5 numbers. The easiest way to do it is break it down into, well, what would I need for my business to fail? Like if I wanted my business to go to 0, what would I do? Well, I probably wouldn't advertise. I probably wouldn't have a good product. I would probably have terrible employees. I would probably manage my finances terribly. I would probably have bad systems in place to grow. All these different things, right? You can like really just sit down and just think about that, and in 10 minutes you'll have the answer to everything. It's such an easy way to think about it. I learned this from Charlie Munger. It's like anytime you're trying to understand something or figure something out, the easiest way to do that is through inversion thinking. Now, once you think about these things, right? Like, I need advertising to grow my business. Okay, like because if I don't advertise, my business will go to 0. I need great employees. I need great systems. I need to manage my finances properly. I need that in check. That is what becomes what you can call KPIs in your business. So what you do is, say for example, you're talking about advertising. Okay, well, I need great advertising. Well, what is great advertising? Great advertising is going to give me a low cost per booked sales call. Say you're trying to get like prospects booking sales calls with you, it would give me a low cost per call. I need great like salespeople maybe, right? Sales would be close rate, like a good close rate. All these things you could like dissect just by thinking, okay, what are like the things that if my business was to fail, this is what they would be. And then you can extrapolate them out and they become priorities, being like they just become numbers, right? You can just identify these numbers. So then once you figure that out, you now know the 5 numbers you need to grow your business. But where do you take it from here, right? Because the key difference between every single entrepreneur that I know who's like really grown is like they are extremely proactive about these numbers, right? So if these numbers fall off a cliff, they know within days, like hours even. They know super, super, super early. Whereas the ones who aren't successful, their business has a bad month and they're like, oh, why did it have a bad month? Oh, my like cost per acquisition, how much it cost me to get a customer was super high. But they figure that out after a month once they see the P&L. That's an example of being reactive. What we want to do is we want to make you proactive so that you can identify like ASAP when there's a problem, right? So how do you do that? Well, like I said, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create my KPIs. So I have cost per qualified call here. I have show rate. I have close rate. I have average upfront cash collected, and I have churn rate, right? And then a few other things, right? I have more than 5, but you can have 5. Now you can see, right? Like I've actually mapped out like what these things must be, right? So the minimum or maximum they must be. So to get me a cost per qualified call, which would be sort of a qualified lead that I get on a sales call, it can't be any more than $300. To get a good show up rate and have a good show up rate on my sales calls, it can't be any lower than 60%. To have a good close rate and be able to get enough clients, it can't be any lower than 15%. You get the point now, right? But I've now identified my numbers that I need to grow the business. And I'll explain more about this in a moment. But what I want you to fundamentally understand is these KPIs become your priorities. Now, as you start to scale, like when you're at the beginning, you're a lone wolf, right? So you're responsible for all of this. But as you grow, you start adding more and more people. And they become responsible for different things in the business based on their role. So for example, if I had a setter, like an appointment setter for sales calls, they're going to be responsible for show up rate. A closer is going to be responsible for close rate or the amount of cash they collect, right? Then that is what you need to understand. So now you have team members. You need to assign each of your team members. Every single team member in your company has to be assigned to one of these KPIs. I was reading a book about Elon Musk, and like Elon Musk was fanatical over literally what team members in his company owned what metrics. That was literally what he would focus on a lot because he knew that having the right team member own the right metric is what's gonna push the business forward. Because everyone has to own a metric, but you can't do it alone as you start to grow. Like when you grow further than a one-person business, you have to have multiple people owning multiple metrics, which means that once you have that, like you need to be very dead set clear on who owns what. And every person must own what, and that's what becomes their priority. That's what they wake up every morning thinking about, obsessing over, working on. And if it does not hit your KPI, your target, then they are accountable for that metric. That's a key pillar. Because once you're proactive and once you can catch when these things are off, like one of these KPIs are off, you can immediately know, oh, who in the company owns this metric? Who can I talk to and figure out what they're doing wrong to fix this? Now, this is the easiest way to create a killer team because I'll explain more in a moment. This creates insane accountability in the team, and it also allows you to project. And I was reading this book and about Rockefeller. It was like the Rockefeller method, and he was saying that the best entrepreneurs, great leaders can know how to project, like realistically project and actually hit their goals, and they know how to keep the team accountable and maintain a high-performing team. There is nothing easier to maintain a high-performing team than for them to know exactly what high-performing looks like. And that's the problem most business owners walk into, is their team members don't know what high-performing looks like. Like, it's literally not there. They don't know, right? So they can't be good. You can't like maintain what is successful and what isn't because you're not being data driven. You're just like, it's all up in the air. So when I said about projections, this is like, for example, next year, like the end of Q1, like one of my projections. Like I want to be at 200K a month plus 223 to be specific. And the reason why I can set it so specific, and I know that if I spend $2,000 a day, it is unrealistic for me not to achieve this number. Why? Well, because I wasn't fanatical about when setting my target KPIs. To be honest with you, like all these like KPIs at the $300 cost per call, 50% close rate, we all get higher than that right now. And as we grow, I understand it may drop, but realistically, I think that we could hit this. I think that if we spent $2,000 a day on advertising, we would do even more than 200K in a month, right? But I don't like to be fanatical. I like to be realistic. And every like corporate company you see that set these like extremely specific projections and always seem to hit it for some reason, do the same thing. Because it's just like, it's not like super simple. Like, okay, if I do these inputs, like it is unreasonable for me not to hit those outputs. So for example, if I spend $2,000 a day on advertising, I can quite easily like project, okay, I'm going to get about 7 qualified sales calls a day at $300 cost per call. If I like bring that over just for it to be super clear, this links to this. For example, show rate is going to link to this. I can blend it all in, like 15% close rate. Okay, well, if I have 150 live calls, 15% is about 23 deals. And then my average upfront cash collected will be about 4K. Now I can like pretty easily project like where my business is going to be. Well, okay, if we close 23 deals at 6K, about 138K. And then if I count for churn, which I said was 25%, which again is super high for us, it's like, okay, if everything branches over from the previous months, we'll do about 85K in existing revenue from existing clients because we'll go from 31 clients to 23 clients paying our price point of about like $4,000. We hit 85K in a month. Then that combined, we're going to be at 220K. And the thing is, like I've done this for the entirety of 2025. Like I know that I want to do $5 million next year with the company, right? And I've broken down month by month where I need to be and what the numbers need to look like for me to hit this. And to be honest, it's going to be a lot easier to hit this because I'm being data driven and I'm looking at, okay, well, these things are going to be like, even if honestly, like with this data here, it'd be kind of disappointing if we don't hit our goals because like, or if we only hit the 223 because like these numbers are still super low. Like I've been very conservative where like, even if things kind of go wrong, we still hit the goals pretty easily. And now you can probably understand how it's like super easy if you have projections of your business or where to be, because you can be like, well, what would make it unrealistic for me not to hit my goals, right? To go back to the accountability, this is how we do it. So we have business metrics and we have what I call a scorecard. Now, every single week, the person who is accountable for their metrics and for their data, for example, the setter with their show up rate, they calculate what their show up rate is, we verify it, and then they send it through to this business metrics scorecard, and we add this to a form. What this then does is this then would bring into like a Slack channel, like wherever your communication is, and it will push forward exactly all these metrics here and what they are, right? So say, for example, I get a Slack message that comes in, and it's like, okay, well, our cost per qualified call last week was $400. Okay, well, there's something we need to change, right? Our show up rate was 50%. Well, there's something we need to change there. We need to, on the meeting with a team member, go to that team member, look at what they're doing, what can we fix to get back to that KPI as soon as possible. And the thing is, we do this every single week, and we monitor it throughout the week. And it becomes super, super important to do that the more you grow, because if you don't do this, then what's going to happen is you're going to see at the end of the month, your P&L, your numbers were like below and you dropped. And you're going to be like, why did I drop? Why did I make less money this month? And then you have to go back and look at this stuff anyway. And then you figure out, okay, show rate is like absolute tank this month. This caused a lot of problems with the business. Oh, like there's been a problem for like 3 weeks, right? And by that point, it's really, the problem is really settled in. But when you do this early, you can catch it. You can be proactive about it. You can fix it in hours, days. You're obsessive about this. This is what running the business looks like. This is what growing looks like. Doing this successfully is how you grow. This is how you be data-driven and create predictability where you're like, you can turn on the engine, you can grow because you understand all the components that are needed to grow, and then you can track them constantly to make sure the engine, the car is moving forward. That is how you grow your business. This is what every single entrepreneur I know who's like highly successful does, right? And that is how you can use just 5 numbers in your company to create insane predictability and grow effortlessly. It makes scaling stupidly simple.